beautiful jellyfish, it's Tracy, and today we're going to be doing a video talking all about basically your life total, are life totals relevant, and basically doing damage to yourself. Modern has been called the format where you just hurt yourself for a lot of damage because Modern's running things like Fetchlands, Shocklands, one of the most iconic cards in Black, Thoughtseize, which deals you damage, and basically my opinions on it, on like how relevant are life totals and like stuff like that. So yeah, I completely understand that when you're getting into like this more competitive environment, if you're getting into Modern and you're like, well, I don't want to take damage because why would I want to do that? It's like, I want my life total to stay high and stuff like that, constantly. But the thing is, and that totally makes sense, and I was at a place with it, most people were at a place with it, at one point or another, but you've come to realize that when you're playing, life totals matter, and we'll get to that later. Well, I'll get to talking about that later, but like, the thing is that like, when you take damage, you're doing it for a reason. Like, if you're running Fetchlands, for example, there's a reason that you're running Fetchlands in your deck. There's a reason that Fetchlands are so awesome, and there's also a reason why the enemy Fetchlands just shot up in price. One, because they're not being reprinted, and two, because they're really good. Fetchlands are just some of the best lands of all time, and the reason that Fetchlands are so good is mainly for two reasons. Basically, you get to your better cards quicker. And another reason is that it gets you colors. If you look at a lot of decks in Modern, most of them have like at least 2 colors. A lot of decks are like 3 colors. There's some decks that even run 4 colors. So you really want to get those colors, and that's really important. So that's why Fetchlands are so important. So basically, if you're playing and you're like, I'm gonna turn 1 fetch shock, you're taking 3 damage on turn 1. You're down to 17 already, and your opponent hasn't even done anything, and you're like, oh my gosh. But turn 1, you get to do something that is relevant to your board. So yeah, basically, Fetchlands are awesome. If you're building decks, like, in Modern, you should probably be running Fetchlands. It's just something that's very, very relevant to your deck. One of the few decks that can get away with it is Amulet, just because the deck doesn't call for that, and you don't need Fetchlands in that deck because you're running Bounce Lands instead. But basically, most other decks, you're gonna see Fetchlands on like everyone's list, and there's a reason for that. Basically, the reason I'm actually doing this video is because last night I was inspired. I was like, I played Modern last night. I went 2-2, by the way. I was pretty happy. I, like, was talking to this one girl who had, like, Grixis control, and we were, like, bonding over Gurmag Angler and Tassiger, and it was really awesome, and I was, like, she was really cool. I really love bonding with ladies in particular about Magic. It's just, we have, like, a very cool connection, and it was really great. Anyways, so I was talking, so this one kid was talking, and he was buying the those Fetchlands that are like Fetchlands, but they're like the worst versions of the Fetchlands. They're the ones that come in tapped, and then you pay 1 life and you sack it. And so the kid was like, well, they're cheaper. And then the owner and I were like, yeah, but they're not as good. And he's like, but I don't like taking damage. And that's like part of the reason why I'm doing this video, is because I was thinking about it, and I was like, wow, like that is definitely in the mindset of a lot of players, is one, the price tag of Fetchlands, especially if you need enemy Fetchlands, because they're really expensive right now. They'll get reprinted, don't worry. But if you need them like right now, I'm really sorry, because they're really expensive. I'm really sorry if you need enemy fetches. My heart, like, I'm really sorry. But they're realistically, the thing about Fetchlands is that unless there's something that comes out that's better, which is, there's probably not going to be something that comes out that's better than Fetchlands, let's be real here. I was like, that is something that is in the mindset of a lot of players, is that, one, the price, which, if you really need, like, if you need ally fetches, they're really not that expensive. They're like 7, 8, 9, 10. That's really not that bad. And it's like, yeah, you're gonna need a place out of them most likely, depending on your deck. But it's like, the thing is that Fetchlands are never really bad. They're one of those cards that's just always going to be probably popular, like I said, unless something better comes around. So they're definitely worth the investment. Like, once you play with Fetchlands, you were like, okay, I'm never going back to not playing without fetches, because they're just so important. They're just one of those really staple Magic cards that it's like, you know, it's like you can have different opinions on like other things. Like I said, when I did a whole video on Thoughtseize versus Inquisition, you can have your own opinions on that. Fetchlands are one of those things I'm going to tell you need to run them in Modern. They're just really, really important. They're just one of those staples that it's like, I think that it's just one of those things I don't think you can avoid. It's like, if you're running white in Modern, you're most likely going to be running Path. There's really no excuses for that. For other removal cards, you're just going to be running Path. Stuff like that. So, yeah, and then going into Shocklands and stuff like that. Shocklands, you know, you're gonna take 2 damage and stuff like that when they come in. But I like how you have the option with shocklands. Like, if your opponent is not really putting too much pressure on, you've taken a look at your hand, they really don't have much action, you can get away with that. You have the option of having them come in tapped, which is really cool. And shocklands, they're just really important. The thing is that colors are really, really important, because if you are running 2, 3, 4 colors and you are very color sensitive, like you're running a tricolor deck and you're running like cryptic command, like I'm building Gerard Fabiano's at some point. I'm building a similar build to Gerard Fabiano's Sultai deck in Modern, and that is like, casting Cryptic Command can be really tough because it's 3 blue mana symbols and you're running 3 colors. That can be really tough to pull off. That's one of the reasons why something like shocklands and fetches are really important, because yes, you're doing yourself damage, but though the card's like really important. If you need to cast a Cryptic Command, are you gonna be like, oh man, I really don't want to take 2 points of damage? Oh my gosh, no, you need to cast Cryptic Command. It's like one of those things, if you like need to fetch Shock and Path to Exile, you're like, okay, well, let's think about this. You take 3 points of damage, but you've just gotten white mana so that you can Path to Exile their dude. If you're playing against Bloom and they can kill you in 1 turn, is it going to be like, well, you know, I really don't want to take 3 points of damage, but if you don't, you're going to die? Like, let's just think about that for a minute. Let's just think about that. Like, dying or staying alive and taking 3 points of damage? Come on. The answer is pretty obvious, right? So it's definitely an adjustment. It's definitely not something that's going to happen like overnight. You're just going to need to get used to hurting yourself and, you know, doing yourself damage. And I do want to talk about Thoughtseize, and I did a whole video talking about Thoughtseize and Inquisition, like I said, but one of the points I mentioned in there, it's actually also in this really awesome Reduke article, which is really sweet. It's called, like, Thoughtseize You, which is really awesome, and it, like, one of the things that he says in the article is just, like, the fact that when you cast Thoughtseize, yes, you take 2 damage, however, you are getting rid of a really important piece of in their hand. You're getting rid of something that's really threatening. If you're playing against Splinter Twin, you get rid of a piece of their combo, so they can't combo off and kill you. You're getting rid of a Siege Rhino, so if you take 2 points of damage, you're like, okay, I took 2 points of damage, but you got rid of a Siege Rhino, which is 3 points of immediate damage when it enters. That's really scary. 3 points of damage that they gain, which you don't want them gaining life. And you have 4 points of trample damage that if you don't have something like the Path to Exile, you're gonna have to deal with. And trample damage that's just really annoying. And it's like an awkward 4/5, so it's like, it's just one of those things that like, yeah, I just love Siege Rhino. Siege Rhino is great. But it's very difficult to deal with. So it's like, yeah, you take 2 damage, but you've gotten rid of a key card. And another thing that's really awesome about hand destruction cards like Thoughtseize is, one, you get rid of anything, which is really awesome, except for non-land, obviously. But you can get rid of anything that you want that is super threatening, which is awesome. You're not restricted to any of those other, like, cards, that hand destruction cards, like I said, I did the whole video talking about why I think Thoughtseize and Inquisition are just, like, 2 of the best things, and, like, one of the reasons why people feel really secure with running Thoughtseize is because, yes, you take damage, but you can take anything. But it's the fact is that you know what cards are in their hand. Knowledge is very, very important in Magic. But yeah, just like knowing what cards are in their hand is so important. It's like, it is just one of the best things that you can do in this game, having the advantage of knowing what you're not gonna know what your opponent draws, but it's like, it doesn't matter, because it's like, you get to know for that period of time, okay, they've got these cards in their hand, I know what to expect, I know what to play around, so knowledge is really key in this game. So, that's why just Thoughtseize is just one of the best cards in the game. If you're playing, it's one of those things, like, if you're playing Black in Modern, you're probably running Thoughtseize, because it's just a huge staple card. But yeah, like, oh, okay, and I do want to go back to that one example that I gave you guys when the kid was talking about, the land thing, is, so, one of the things that the owner of the store and I were talking about is, we were like, yes, the fact that you take a damage from a fetch land is unfortunate, and it's like, you know, can be relevant in games, absolutely. Like I said, I'm gonna get to life totals in just a little bit, like, if life totals are relevant or not, but, like, the thing is that, like, you take a damage, but you get to do whatever it is that you want to do quicker. So it's like, you know, it's like, you could be like, okay, I'm gonna play this, like, turn 1, I'm gonna play this land that comes in tapped, and then you're like, great, I'm just not gonna do anything because I have this land that comes in tapped, because you don't want to take 2 damage, but it's like, instead of that, you could play, I don't know, turn 1 Noble Hierarch, and then on turn 2, you have 3 mana to play, I don't know, whatever it is that you want to play. You could play another Noble Hierarch and a Voice of Resurgence, or, like, something like that. So it's like, just like things like that. It's like so relevant that it's like, if you get to do whatever it is that you want to do quicker, I really don't understand how it's a bad thing. It's like, the thing is with life totals, and I think this may be why some people are really hesitant about taking damage, is because aggro is so much of the meta right now. Like, I talked about this when I was talking about like aggro and modern right now, how like aggro is just like so big, where it's like when you're in a matchup, and this is my segue into talking about life totals, like when you're dealing with a lot of decks that do, like, where life totals can be relevant, like 3 points of damage or 2 points of damage that you take with a shockland can be relevant. I can understand why people would definitely be hesitant, but it's like, at the same time, it's like, you gotta play your game, and you gotta play with your board and establishing your board. And the whole thing about life totals, and this is a really interesting area, because a lot of people have different things to say about it, and my whole thing is that you can be playing a game where, like, you're at, like, 3 life, and you can still win. There's absolutely, like, last night, so the guy who was talking about the whole thing with the fetch lands about not running to take the damage, he was playing Burn. And so I'm playing against, oh wait, no, was that the kid? No, it was a different kid. Whoa, sorry, totally different kid. Anyways, I'm sitting down with this guy and we're playing, and I'm playing Bloom and he's playing Burn. And so the really interesting thing about Burn versus Bloom in Modern is that, like, Burn has a pretty decent early game, because they're just like Monasteries of Spear, Lightning Bolt, Lightning Strike, whatever, and they do all their things. And the thing is that, like, they kind of run out of cards. So, like, on turn 3, they've done you, like, X amount of damage, and you're down, and they think that, oh, man, one of my favorite things ever that people do is when you're playing Bloom is when you don't do anything, people are like, they're not doing anything, they don't have threats in their hand, and it's like, oh, really, I'm not threatening, and then you just do the whole, like, Summer Bloom thing, and then it's like, okay, well, that's, like, 18 damage, and they're like, and Burn decks just can't deal with it, which is, by the way, like, Bloom versus Burn, it's literally an awful matchup for Burn, because Burn has to 2-for-1 your stuff. And so I'm talking to the guy afterwards, and he has to, he had like 2 lightning bolts or something, and then he bolted me instead of my creature, and I was like, yeah, I really hate calling people out on misplays, because, like, you know, a lot of times people can justify their misplays, which like, that's totally fine, like, you should do that, you should be like, well, yeah, that was my decision at the time, but in my opinion, it was a misplay, because I was like, I really do think you should have bolted the Primeval Titan, because I had Sunhome Fortress of the Legion out to give a double strike, and I was like, I ended up killing him with the prime time, so if he had gotten rid of it by double bolting it instead of bolting my face. So it's kind of one of those things. But anyways, that's not the point. What was I even talking about? Life totals. Oh yeah, life totals. Is that we were playing, and he had me down at some games at like a pretty low life. Like, he had me down, you know, some games are really low, but I ended up winning because I just went off and, you know, did the whole thing. So it's like they thought they had the advantage in the early game by, you know, doing all of their things, but then it's like, you know, I just, like, ended up coming back and then just being able to, you know, race them out, really. But yeah, like, I think that the whole thing is that, you know, there's going to be some games where you're going to be at 3 life because you've fetched and you shocked and you thought seized and whatever, and they're going to just bolt you to the face, and there's just, it's like, yep, there's just nothing I can really do about that. But more times than not, you're really going to find that establishing your board is going to be way more important than playing around cards. Like, I actually had him, it was interesting, is he, when he sideboarded, he was playing, Smash to Smithereens in his sideboard because he was playing Mono Red Burn, and he was like, oh, you know, I had Smash to Smithereens in my hand, did you not play Amulet because you thought I had a card like that? And I said no. I was like, I wasn't playing around it. I was like, you know, the reality is that, like, you have to play your game and you have to play your cards, and it's like, you have to play into it, you know what I mean? It's like, unless you're playing, like, you both are playing blue and you both can control the board and you're waiting, you know, for your counter spells and stuff like that, it's like, I have to play my game, and I'm gonna play in, of course I'm gonna play into it. I can't be like, well, I'm just gonna hold back my Amulet because I think you have a removal spell in your hand. It's like, hey guys, that's it. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day/night, and I will talk to you in my next video. Bye!